Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Among Thieves is a movie that faced a lot of controversy leading up to its release. A lot of people thought that it looked like another mediocre film that miscast people like Chris Pine, and now that it's finally out, the user scores are actually pretty good for the movie, but it doesn't seem like enough people showed up to watch it since it has bombed at the box office. I have a few different things to show off, but before we get into the topic, if you enjoy the content that I create, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and the notification bell. Follow me on social media like Twitter or mine so that you can see when my content is posted. And of course, if you do really enjoy the videos and the live streams that I create, please consider becoming a Dark Titan via Patreon or a supporter via YouTube memberships. So I wanted to start off with this cosmicbook.news article. Dungeons & Dragons box office bombs worse than Shazam, and honestly, I can't say that I'm all that surprised. I didn't expect this film to do amazing at the box office. I didn't expect it to be this massive successful hit, and while I am a bit shocked by the user scores, I'm not really shocked to hear that it's doing bad. It says exactly as I thought would happen, and contrary to all the shilling going on by the trades, Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Among Thieves bombs at the box office, and it actually bombs worse than Shazam: Fury of the Gods. That was another movie I personally had no high expectations for. I saw it, I thought it was okay, but it wasn't great. Same with Dungeons & Dragons. It is not a 9 out of 10. The user scores right now are sitting around a 91% audience. I do not agree with that. I feel like this is just another 6 out of 10 movie. A major problem that I had with this film is that, yes, the men were all emasculated. They did purposely make the men look weak and like idiots. Even the villains had this issue. The Lord of Neverwinter was just an idiot being controlled by a female Red Wizard of Thay. All of the frontline fighters were women. The women were much stronger than the men and actively made the men look like buffoons. And sure, there was even talk of Zastam in the movie. There was a flashback scene with him in it, but he's not the central part of it. A lot of the other woke messaging that we typically see in films wasn't there because there weren't like any LGBT relationships or flirting, but the men did look very dumb, and the way they added in this, with the male versus the female characters, it will go over the heads of a lot of people, but I still noticed it. It's another movie like Shazam, aside from woke or not, it is just meh. It's not a 90%, and at best it's like a 6 out of 10, like I mentioned. The humor fell flat at most times, the visuals were okay, and Chris Pine was the worst bard ever. It's not his acting, this is just a poorly written character. He can barely sing and can barely play the lute, and he just doesn't seem like a bard at all. It says, though, while sites like Deadline and THR kept reporting this weekend that D&D would open to over 40 million, making it sound like a big success so everyone would think it's good and rush to the theaters, it actually opened less than 40 million and is now reported to only have brought in 38.5 million. And of course, the trades are even comparing things with the pandemic again, which is so desperate and hilarious. They need to let this go. I understand that they are trying to shield the movies that are doing poorly in an attempt to defend the companies behind them, but this movie is just a fail. We don't need to be comparing it with pandemic box office numbers. And it said, let's also not forget they actually debuted it this weekend and had screenings on Wednesday and Thursday, all of which counted towards the Friday and weekend opening numbers, so the numbers were inflated and are simply just nothing to write home about. Yeah, I mean, they did have several days in advance than most other films. Most films open Thursday night previews, and then you see it on Friday, but this one went all the way back to Wednesday. So the article goes on to compare the two films, as there have been comparisons to Shazam's box office, which is considered a bomb as it opened to only 30 million. Let's do a little math. Shazam Fury of the Gods cost only 100 million, while D&D sports a hefty $151 million price tag for its budget. So you know what number D&D would need to equal Shazam? D&D needed an opening box office weekend of 45.3 million just to match Fury of the Gods numbers. If we reverse the math with D&D costing 151 million and bringing in 38.5 million on the flip side, Shazam Fury of the Gods at 100 million would be like if it brought in 25.5 million. So again, the trades reporting that the film is a success or honorable or respectable is a complete farce, while at the same time Shazam is a big box office bomb. Now, I've talked about the D&D movie a couple of times leading up to its release because we did have our worries watching the teasers and the trailers. But there was an interview from a couple of weeks ago that I thought that I would reference again. In an interview with the directors and writers, it was learned they changed everything about the characters in order to fit with their agenda, which is the, of course, definition of wokeness. The co-director Jonathan Goldstein had claimed it isn't woke, but it seems likely he is just trying to deflect opposition to his movie, which is definitely the case. And of course, now we do have the initial critic and user scores. The critics, of course, loved it, and 90% is pretty solid. Top is an 89, but the audience score is also right around a 92%, which is far too generous, in my opinion. Wizards of the Coast has such insane fans that yes, the people who saw it don't care about the content of the movie, they just care that it's got Dungeons and Dragons in its title and that Wizards of the Coast is pushing the narrative they want, so of course they are going to give it a high score, and they were the ones who went to see it on release weekend. It will be interesting to see what the score drops to over the next few weeks, but I don't even think that many people are going to see it to make a big difference with this score. This is just, in my opinion, another very big loss for Hasbro. I mean, these box office numbers are not good. They were probably worried about this movie since tons of people said they were going to boycott it when the OGL controversy was going on. They were probably hoping that those people would show up, and I don't think they will, since this movie had one weekend as the large release, and that's it, because next weekend the Super Mario movie comes out. If I was going to go to the theaters and see a film, it wouldn't be Dungeons and Dragons, that's for sure. The trailers for it were pretty middling, and maybe it will end up being, you know, an okay film for them in the grand scheme of things. But right now, it's looking really, really awful for them, and their competition over the next few weeks is going to be absolutely massive. So in my opinion, this is just another very, very big loss for Hasbro. Can't say I'm really all that surprised by it though. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this and found it important and informative, please make sure to give it a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel. And of course, if you didn't, make sure to give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.